Hey, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the conversation. We're going to call it the Genesis podcast. I think that's what we have stumbled upon.
I think we went with it. I think we're going to stick to it. Yeah.
We kind of were tossing a bit around a few different ideas. I mean, you're the expert when it's all said and done. Bulent, by the way. Zach, once again, great to have you here. And, last time we had a conversation, for the person who's either watching or listening, it was probably like drinking out of a fire hose, just talking about all the blockchain technology. At least it was for me. I was learning a lot.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I'm sure that people at home are thinking, at least I know, is, you went on this journey of learning all about blockchain technology and really embodying this entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah.
And I think what's going to be really interesting to not only the listeners or the viewers, but the entire conversation to know where we're going is to know where you've been. Mm-hmm. So when did the whole entrepreneurial bug bite you that led you on this journey?
Yeah, very, very deep question. It started a very long time ago, even before I came to the United States. Just before I actually moved to the United States, it was 17 years ago. I was with a few friends. 5 of us kind of started doing entrepreneurship, and it was really heartbreaking for me that I got accepted to American college and then just tell them, hey, I'm gonna have to leave. But it was very heartbreaking because it's deep down inside, I do have this entrepreneurial bug basically in me. And then I came here to the United States for a PhD program, and that was about 17 years ago. And then so after a year I actually started building a Facebook. When Facebook just opened its APIs, the app, you can build games and apps. I just built a Turkish game, and there were 300 people using it every day. It was a lot of fun. So it's always in me, kind of. And then I met a guy, a friend of mine. Then we were both very entrepreneurial. We did we worked together for 7 years. But I was doing my PhD program, and then I worked in the big tech companies. I remember one day I was building this website, and it was the website to collect kind of bookmarks. Delicious.com was popular. So I was like, hey, can I clone delicious.com, and can I build something similar? So I was talking to a friend, a coworker, and we're talking once a week, a lot, and then after 3 months, I actually showed it to him. Hey, look, I was talking about this project. I'm let me show it to you. And he was like, oh my God, I didn't know you were actually building it. He thought he was just talking about it. So it's kind of been always in me. And after making some money from these big tech companies, I kind of decided to just do it full time about 5-6 years ago. So I would say my actual entrepreneurial journey started 5-6 years ago, but I've always been working along with during my PhD program or at the companies that I was working. So it's kind of been in me. And yeah, if you know that you have it in you, you always kind of do that.
When did you make that initial first big move from Turkey to the United States?
Yeah, so one of the big thing for me was when I was in high school, I decided I had this vision for myself, and I've always been into building things and building products, building little things, and even when I was a kid, I was doing building little toys, breaking them and then putting together making a different toy, and then one thing for me was that I was looking for a place where this is appreciated. And when I was in high school, I just had this dream of coming to America where people like me are appreciated. People like me come here and build products. And then people enjoy that. Instead of stopping people like me, they encourage people like that and then just make them do more.
So are you saying it was frowned upon where you're from? Where you would start creating something and it's nope, stay in the box.
It's a lot of people can probably relate to this. It was a little like that. I remember one time at 11, I was 11, I built this kind of a ship, and then I attached a motor. I was kind of testing it out outside in a pond, and my friends were just making fun of me for it. And I was like, this is the future. Like, you need to be able to build these things to make more money or make, a living. And I realized this is just the wrong place to be in. That's what it kind of hit me.
But I almost feel like in some regard, that is the mindset of just a lot of people, where they're comfortable where they are, and because they're just maybe unaware of what is actually going on outside their own little world.
Yeah.
Anything that seems out of the comfort zone of themselves, it's like, oh, that's stupid. Why are you doing that? Is that what you encountered a lot growing up, just in general?
Yeah. So I countered so many times. I'm desensitized to it. Like, it's that bad. Like, people saying like, oh, you can't do this, you won't do this. Even when I was getting my driver's license at 18, I remember my dad's friend saw us, and my dad was taking me to the course, and then and he was like, "Oh, your son is not into it. He's a bad person." As soon as he turned 18, he's trying to get a license. In Turkey, you get a license at 18, and like, he's just trying to like use your money and whatever. Like, he's not a good kid. And my dad just laughed. He couldn't say anything. Just people have this judgment, basically, that kind of stuff. And actually, it wasn't that. It was just like, I just wanted to drive my mom and my sisters around to take care of the family, basically. That was the main motivation. But people do judge you, and they just don't understand where you come from. And the motivations are really important. So, but I would say, like, especially in like I came to America, it's appreciated, and I went to even Silicon Valley, it's even more appreciated. So I didn't. It didn't bother me. I just said that I'm just in the wrong place.
I want to ask you about that, because you worked for Facebook.
Yeah.
Like, when you first told me that, a month or two ago, I was just like, really? What's that like? And here you are in Dayton, Ohio, and I'm born and raised here, love it. And I guess, what made you move, I mean, from Turkey to Silicon Valley? There might have been somewhere in between, who knows, but what made you come here and say, like, this is the next place that I want to plant my flag and grow myself as not only a person but an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So for me, sometimes in life, and this could be like an advice to people, sometimes in life, environment or things take you to places. And this is an example for me like that. My hometown is actually quite similar level. Like, Dayton in America is similar to like my hometown in Turkey. And so sometimes in life, like, things kind of change your course and take you to places. Maybe not the best place, but you would be. But as long as you stick to what you're doing, not giving up, I think you can pretty much do it anywhere, I would say. Even if I were stuck in Turkey, I would probably keep doing the same thing.
I can't remember. Do you have kids?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No.
So what would be like the hope later on down the road, if kids is something that is in your future that you plan on doing? What do you think you would do differently to make sure that they had this mindset moving forward that's different from what you were exposed to when you were a kid?
Yeah. So a lot of the things that I had to endure, or just to make, were just my beliefs, and it was against the norms. But I just had to, like, believe. Even when I talked to you about your business, I said, like, you can do it. Just believe in yourself. But I didn't have the full conviction when I was a kid, when I was younger, not kid necessarily.
Why not?
Because, you come from like places where things aren't available or doable, and you think that that's the way, and you come, you're still, but you grew up there, you have those thoughts, and then you work on something and it fails, and so the signal to you is, again, hey, yeah, they are correct, and you do it again, you fail again, and unfortunately, and then you keep saying, okay, well, they might be right. So after like trying things, and I realized actually no one is right, to be honest with you. Nobody's correct. You just gotta like listen to your guts, the gut feeling, and then just kind of keep doing what you believe is necessarily true. But along the way, you want to also make sure like you don't, have damage your relationships, obviously, because relationships are important. Also, your health. You want to take care of your health and other things. But if you believe that you have some insight that you think it's going to work, you should just keep, believing and then keep doing that. It's possible. So I remember when I came here, my cousin. So I told people I'm going to the United States and I got a PhD, got into a PhD program. And my cousin just laughed. He was like, "What's next? You're gonna go to the moon?" Like, and I tell people like my goal, if in the future, I do want to go to the moon. Actually, being able to see Earth from outside, and that's a ridiculous goal for me even. But what do we live for? We live for our goals. So I think you should have some goals, reasonable goals. And if you strategize, if you think through them, you can actually achieve those goals.
And just real quickly, for my own entertainment, amusement purposes, do you think that there really will be, and there already kind of has been, but commercial visits to the moon in our lifetime? I mean, there hasn't been commercial visits, but at least there's been commercial flights to space, right? There was a few of those.
Yeah.
But do you think that there will be civilians, commercial trips to the moon in our lifetime?
Yeah. So space, when you go to space, when you go outside the atmosphere, you go around, I think, 250 kilometers above the Earth. Moon is like 1.5 million miles, 1.5 million kilometers away. So it's way further than just going to space. So it's a lot more challenging. But I think within probably 20 years, NASA is already working on settlements on the moon. They're actually working on it, so it's a possibility. Yeah, within 20 years or so.
And I think that's the thing that, again,
it's expensive.
Well, I would imagine it's very expensive. It's not necessarily cheap. But I kind of want to touch on something that you were saying. As you were growing up, there were kids that, whether they made fun of you, picked on you because you were a forward thinker. You were constantly looking into the future. And that's what I think a lot of people will get hung up on, and they'll stop before they ever start because they let other people's opinions and dictate your future. And so what happens unfortunately to some people who had a bright future, they'll stop before they ever got started because they shared their dreams, ambitions, and they're shut down. And then those stories keep repeating in their head over and over and over again. What has been your, how do I want to ask this? What has been your number one routine that you've implemented in your life every single day to not get distracted by those naysayers, to get distracted from what your ultimate goal and purpose is on this planet before you go to the moon?
Yeah. So that's actually quite hard to do. Actually, age really matters, I think, in this. Having a little bit of experience really matters. So I think there are multiple. Look, for me, actually, I'll tell you what I'm doing right now.
Tell me right now.
Right now, I'm doing a few things that just gives me that routine. Because when you have your own company, there's no day. Every day is the same day. There's no weekend. It's the same day. There's no time, hour. So you can wake up at any time and sleep at any time, right? There's just no routine. So you have to create your own routine. But how? So I do have a plant. I water it every day. So that gives me a routine. Believe it or not, it actually works really well.
I'm taking notes over here, actually, because I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you.
Working out, going to the gym,
yeah,
really gives me that routine.
Because you're your own boss. It's not like someone's breathing down your neck telling you what to do. At the end of the day, there's only one person you can blame, and it's yourself.
Yeah.
And so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but so far, watering the plant, going to the gym. Yeah. What else?
I take care of my plants so often that I call it my dog, and people make fun of that. I call it I'm watering my dog. Its name is Dog, basically.
You named your plant a dog. What kind of plant is it?
I think it's one of those. It's quite a big, very sturdy plant. I don't like weak plants. I like a sturdy plant that you can survive in any environment. So I've been watering it for 3 years. It was gonna die actually. It was left to die. I just started watering and taking care of it. It just outgrew. We are on the third pot it's outgrew so much. And the gym, gym is for me. It's more like you need to be, if you're running your own business, you need to be in a healthy mindset and healthy, because the people that you work with are influenced by you, and it's a very healthy lifestyle. So what you can't just tell people like, hey, you should eat healthy, you should work out, and you're just slacking off. You shouldn't do that. You can't do that, obviously, but you should be like encouraging, and then kind of what you're saying, you should be doing those, like they said, drink the Kool-Aid, I guess. Mm-hmm. So like for me, it's the workout. Fortunately, working out is a good habit anyways. So,
and I've noticed so much in my own personal life because health and fitness was always so important to me. And I think what happened to me in the last year or so is really trying to get, the business off the ground or putting my attention elsewhere in my external world, to where you forget that you are the cause of everything that happens.
Yeah.
And so if you neglect something as simple as watering a plant and having a routine for your personal care, going to the gym, and even a mental routine in the morning, it's going to lead to you just having chaos throughout the day. Because again, if you are your own boss and you don't have that structure, the house starts falling apart. The
Pretty
business
much
starts falling apart.
Yeah, and I recommend to people, like, and I do this myself, like having the relationships and mentors, business mentors to rely on, basically, when you're stuck, especially in like business. Like, you can't just rely on like your friends, because your friends don't do business. Like, you can't just talk to them, regular friends, basically. So having those like mentors, like business mentors or other ones that you can kind of talk to, they will have the solution. So it'll be like a therapeutic for you. Yeah, it really is. Like I just engineer that I work with, when I stuck with engineering like challenges, I just talk to him. It just feels so therapeutic. It just kind of makes you get unstuck, basically. So having those friendships, a few, you don't have to have a lot, is very important. Especially like people, place like here, smaller places, smaller cities. You really need that. In a bigger city, everybody, in like Silicon Valley, everybody you encounter is a business owner, pretty much, for me at least. So like I can get advice from anybody on the street. Like I go to Chipotle, for instance, I see like, oh, these two kids they're talking about receiving $5 million investment from some whatever.
And that's just like a normal conversation that you encounter all the time.
Yeah,
in that area.
Yeah, and like I take the train, just two people just talking about that. They're co-founders just talking about stuff like that. So if you're stuck, you can just talk to them. But like here, that doesn't happen. So you kind of have to find that person that you can bounce ideas with. It's very healthy. I would really recommend it.
Well, and that's something that you and I have talked about before. So where we're technically located here is the Dayton Arcade, and it's had you worded once before, the amount of conversations that you're going to have here compared to anywhere else. Here again in this local area in Dayton is very high, and the probability of actually making a connection, which we're the product of that, if you think about it. And why do you think that is? As a city that was a city of innovation, I mean, the invention of flight was here, the cash register here, although I know Dayton still has that grit of being a city of innovation, why do you think there's been a stalemate in terms of growth? And there's been some struggle there. If from an outsider's perspective, coming from Turkey, being in Silicon Valley, where I mean that is
pretty much
innovation. That's 24/7. What are your thoughts on that?
So I want to say a few things, and I'm curious about your thoughts too. I think the folks here, especially younger folks, are so hungry, and they have no role model almost. They just don't know basically anything. In like other places, there's at least some other folks that you can copy. You can kind of see them and learn them, like in Silicon Valley, you go to an event, AI event, Sam Altman is there. I mean, basically the CEO of OpenAI. I mean, that's the main guy, the number one. So like, you just watch that and you encounter. It happened to me. Like, I go to an event and the number one person, the president of whatever thing, is right there giving a talk. You're in the same room. It's just unbelievable. But here, there's that doesn't exist. The role model doesn't exist. So people are really, really hungry. And so there's only a few folks here. And what I noticed was that the amount of interaction, the percentage of interaction is so high. Like half of the people are doing business, even though there's like 4 people. The 2 people are already doing business and other 2 are doing business here. The ratio is quite low in Silicon Valley, like only maybe like 5%, 2% of interaction. But there's hundreds of people. So total amount is higher of interaction, but like the percentages are lower. It would be overwhelming anyways over there. But the people here are very hungry and they don't want to leave. They don't want to go somewhere else. They want to stay, but they want to have the same experience. So they're so willing to give whatever, basically.
Yeah, I have a few different thoughts there. So when you say that they don't want to leave, and I understand that. So again, I'm born and raised here in Dayton.
Yeah.
And I get the itch every now and again. It's like, okay, I need to get outside this Ohio bubble. I've only ever worked in Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And but to that point, and I say this all the time, that Dayton is a place that's a blank canvas. You can make whatever you want out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You have all the colors, the paints, the whatever. You can draw whatever you want because you had all these big companies here at one point. They up and left because of financial reasons or whatever. And so all that's left, you see all these old factories, but you see these factories that are turned into something cool. You see this building.
This building is a good example.
This building that we're in is a huge example. And so I think what's left behind are the hungry people that said, okay, do I want to be like the people that up and leave and go to quote unquote greener pastures and leave the possibilities behind because it's like, okay, well, that's a sinking ship. I'm going to go elsewhere. Mm-hmm. But I feel like what's left behind are the hungry people that say like, nope, I have a vision. I know you didn't see it, but I can see it. Now who else can lock arms with me and build that vision together? Let's all see if we can see it together and make it happen.
Yeah.
So I definitely
you don't
see
need
that.
many. You just need a few people to do together with.
That again are hungry, and
exactly.
And that's the other thing that I have learned as I've gotten older is the power of collaboration over competition.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that is, I believe, difficult to overcome.
Yeah, it is. I mean, for me, like culturally, Turkish people are very competitive. And man, getting that out of your system is actually quite hard because it's almost out of nature to be competitive.
Well, yeah, because you don't want anybody taking something from you. And I think that's what it is that fear that you're going to take something from me. Mm-hmm. When really, I think that if you're sharing what you're passionate about and what you're skilled at, it's going to be a compliment to what I bring to the table. And because of you having that piece and I have this piece, we're able to make something that you and I never dreamed of in the first place. It's even better.
Yeah.
But getting to that point, it's a shedding of the ego. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. And that's not human nature to go against yourself. But entrepreneurs are like that usually. So you see it a lot in the Silicon Valley area, like the amount of things people give to others. And then
in Silicon Valley or here?
In Silicon Valley happens.
Okay.
Here probably for different things, not for entrepreneurship, but for other things. Maybe like family life is probably like that. So if you ask a relative, hey, can I use your car for whatever, they'll probably give it to you, right? So like that's kind of sharing. Similar to like in Silicon Valley, that happens for entrepreneurship. Like, my friend, I'll give you an example. One of my friend, he went to Korea. He was gonna have an investor meeting. And he's not a developer. He's an engineer, but a mechanical engineer. So he built this thing, the service, and it wasn't working. And I know fundamentally there's something problematic, and it needs an additional thing. And I explained it. He just couldn't. I was like, let me just spend 2 hours. I'll just do it for you. So I built it. He pitched it to the investors and received like a good amount of money. So I didn't get anything out of it. But I wasn't planning to get anything. But I helped him. But what happens is someone else helps me. He doesn't directly help me, but somebody else helps me, and then that person gets help from somebody else. So this kind of like shared help is really works. It's against human nature to do this, but if everyone's behaving that way, it actually works magically, and that's why Silicon Valley is like very good. One thing I tell people is that failure is really appreciated in the Bay Area, in Silicon Valley. People here try to make you succeed. Actually, we should encourage people to fail quick so that you can get to the next failure.
What was that Mark Zuckerberg said often?
Yeah.
Fail fast, fail big, something like that?
Yeah, break things, move fast, break things. They changed it to not break things anymore, but it was too problematic at some point. But failure it's so weird. When you fail, people appreciate it in Silicon Valley. So they throw more money at you. Like, hey, build another thing, fail again. You're like, really? Yeah, fail more. And it's kind of a strange feeling, but that's how it works.
What's it like for you when you are in that creative process? I mean, again, thinking back to when you were young, you're making this boat with this motor on the back of it, and you're forward thinking. What is that creative process like for you, where you're trying to come up with something new, basing it off of something that was done once before? I'm trying to get a understanding of how your mind works and what makes you even pick something up in the first place to say, there's a problem, I want to try to figure it out. What goes through your head every single time you go into that creative process?
Yeah, so I don't think I'm like that good. I think I'm okay.
I mean, just to be clear here, this is a podcast talking about blockchain technology and technologies that I can't wrap my head around. So from an outside perspective, I'd say you're pretty good.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
So let's be fair here.
Yeah, we call it the Genesis. Genesis is like means for blockchain technology, it's the first block that does not rely on any other block. Because blockchain is a chain of blocks, so this next block depends on the previous block, and the next one depends on the previous block. So that's how you have the chain of blocks. But there's got to be a genesis block that doesn't depend on anything. It's generated. So that's the genesis of my life, I guess. So we can talk about that. Yeah.
Now the name makes so much more sense to me.
Yeah.
And it took a full conversation for us to get there, but no, that makes so much more sense. And that's how we are as human beings. I mean, everything is an idea built upon another idea.
Yeah.
And that's why, for me, I love music. And you think about like the music that exists today is based on the music of previous generations and decades. And I mean, that's how technology is. But right now, technology is moving at this exponential rate.
Yeah.
And so you probably could be, you could probably dive into that conversation for a long time. And so I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself just thinking about how this is all unfolding now. So let's talk about that problem solving though. So, Genesis, you have to have something that you're basing that previous idea on. So let's talk about that creative process you have.
Yeah. So the creative process, everybody is different. There's so for a business, it needs to make sense. It needs to work. It needs to solve a problem. What's the problem? It needs to help customers. It needs to talk. So I usually I usually get involved in like some technology, because I'm a tech person. I don't look like it. A lot of people don't think I can code a lot.
What do they typically look at you and think you do for a living?
They think I'm a promoter or some club or something like that.
Genesis could be some hot nightclub in Miami. It's possible.
Yeah, that's a good point. We should probably do that. Genesis Club. I mean, people think that, and I'm very technical actually. I have a computer science degree and everything. So I usually get involved with some technology. For me, it's not, some people are like, oh, I'm too old. I'm like, what's the point of it? Like, you just work on it. Like, do as much as you can. Like, it's not about, if you're younger, you can do more, just do more. If you're a little older, you can do less, but you do it. So So for me, I just get involved in some technology, and usually there's no. I mean, for me, there should be a direction, but there's no. It starts as no direction. So I kind of play with it, play around with the technology, and then start talking to people about it. And then instead of selling that, I just ask them what the problems they have. In the technology space, they're using those things, but then necessarily they're using what you're building. So I asked them when I came up with the Move network. I actually did the same thing. I was building something else actually in Move space. So I started Move ecosystem. Move is a programming language for a smart contract. It's lots more secure than Solidity, which is for Ethereum. So I was in this ecosystem, and the reason why I was in the ecosystem is Move was built at Facebook, and I worked at Facebook. I know how the products that Facebook built are really good, so it got me interested. 2 years ago, I started looking into it, and I started building some products, some applications, and I started talking to the other developers, like what the problems they're seeing. And for me, and the number one thing they were saying was like, hey, this is all cool and all that, but it's really isolated. Like we want to build it for Ethereum, but we want to still use Move, but we want to be on Ethereum. How does that work? And at first, it just doesn't make sense to you. Like, what does that even mean? Like, and you kind of talk to more people and a lot more people, and then at some point, it just kind of clicks. Kind of things can get together, and it clicks. You're like, oh, Move smart contracts, but like a layer 2 on Ethereum, because you can't have Move on Ethereum directly. It's like a layer 2 solution. So you explore the technology a little more at the same time in parallel. You talk to people, explore the technology more, but you don't stop. And this process is stressful. I have to say, it's very, very stressful. It's quite miserable. It's like you're in the basically dip. Basically, you just feel very low. If you have a person that you work with, that really, really helps, because at least you can talk to someone, bounce ideas, build together. That person doesn't have to work all the time, but at least you can kind of go back and forth. That really, really helps. That helped for me. That was the big mistake that I didn't do before, that I did right this time. I had someone to talk with, an engineer, and that really helped. So you do that, and then you start building. It doesn't make sense. This is our 4th iteration of the product. And eventually it starts to make sense. And then, you take it from there. Yeah.
Let me pick your brain on something, because you mentioned that it just clicked one day. You just had the insight. And
yeah, it really is like one day.
It's just one day it clicks. And where do you think that comes from? And I have my own beliefs around that. I'm just curious what you believe and your thoughts around it. That if you are dedicated and persistent on something, and you stay in a state of mind, a state of being that is congruent with what you actually want, and you're not getting consumed by those low points that you mentioned, because you mentioned it's very difficult, and you could sit there and beat yourself up all day long and say, oh my gosh, I can't figure out the answer. I can't figure out how we're going to make this work. But one day it just happens. Where do you think that insight comes from?
Yeah.
That one day that it just popped in your head, and you had the answer. What do you think that comes from?
Yeah, it's very subconscious, if I'm honest. And to be honest, if in the early days, like I would not have believed that it would come at any point. But I've done it so many times, that creative thinking, that it's gonna come. So like some days I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like I'm stuck in the technology, I'm stuck in the idea. So I'm gonna go to the gym, basically. Like that's what you say. Like let me go to the gym. The gym usually helps me every time I get stuck.
Just when you're throwing up 350 cold, it's like, Ethereum Move, got it. Makes sense.
maybe you need to kind of be in a more stressful situation to understand that stressful is nothing, basically. Maybe you need to put yourself in an even more stressful situation, like heavy physical stressful situation, to be able to
compare and contrast, everything that I was stressing about, worrying about, that's nothing compared to what I'm dealing with right now. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense.
I have to say though, having someone else really, really helps. Like to me, that was the biggest difference. It was the journey would be alone, and that was just devastating. And especially if you're stuck in multiple things, like you're stuck in the idea, you're stuck in this customer segment, you're stuck in the product, you're stuck in the development. You're stuck in many things. It's easier to just quit and do something else. But if you have someone that can help you in one of those aspects, for me it was development. I got helped. I got help. And he wasn't even like coding. We were just brainstorming on the code, so I could go and be unstuck, unblocked, and then continue building a little more. Because for me the problem was that I didn't even understand the technology at the time. So like you're building this thing and you don't even know the technology. It's very brand new to me, and you get stuck very easily. And then so you talk to someone, they get you unstuck. So like I think having that person really helps.
Do you invest in any kind of mentors or masterminds or anything like that, just to where you can have that connection and bounce ideas off of other people?
Yeah, I actually would pay for it. Like
Yeah.
To me,
100%.
it's so valuable. Like I used to pay like almost $1,000 like for mentorship, and I realized that that wasn't the right for me, so I cut it off very quickly. But
was that a monthly thing? So $1,000 a month?
Yeah, sort of like that.
Well, I mean it's not unheard of, and that's what I have learned.
Yeah.
And you do sometimes come across the wrong person. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just life. You're going to come across a relationship that's not necessarily the greatest in all areas of your life, whether it's romantic relationships, professional relationships, whatever. But I do genuinely believe that if you want to get somewhere quickly,
Mm-hmm.
collaborate, have conversations with the people that have already been there or doing something similar to where you're trying to go. So I can only imagine with the line of work that you're in and the mission that you're on, the key is having those comversations and sharing that knowledge and insight.
Yeah. That's very, very helpful. Being like coming to this co-working space really helps. To me, I've been to bigger ones, so like I actually would prefer it to be more collaborative.
The space that we're in, you'd want it to be more.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I totally agree.
But even the percentage is so high that I mean it's good. It's good for this area actually. You can vouch for that.
Mm-hmm.
Having the collaborative aspect is really important. I mean, the other thing is like you need to kind of know yourself a little bit, like if you're introverted or extroverted. So you need to kind of know where your ideas, where you're more productive. You need to kind of know about yourself. So to me, it's bouncing ideas. If I'm not bouncing, I'm not thinking. Like I'm not a by myself thinker. I need to bounce ideas, and it's annoying to people around me, like friends, like they're like, "What are you talking about?" Like they don't want to talk to you.
I know exactly what you mean because it almost. I don't want to say people think I don't want to say that people think you're crazy when you're having those conversations, but I've noticed that I do that a lot too. Where you ask a question and it comes out of like left field and you ask the question as if they already knew what you were thinking.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah. But you're searching for an answer yourself. Yeah. You're questioning yourself, not necessarily a conversation, but
right.
Yeah, but if you find like a good people to work with, they really elevate you. I also like to elevate others. Yeah.
I think that's huge, and I think the world definitely needs a lot more of that. And with the direction you're going with Moved, it definitely needs a lot more of that collaboration. And you're looking for, some people that can help you take things to the finish line. But I think just kind of even talking about it now, that it's not going to be just you that gets you there.
Yeah.
You're going to need those collaborations along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I actually hired a few folks. Got a really good designer recently. I'm shocked how good he is. I hired another engineer, so we're like, including me, it's like 3 people, 3 engineers, and then a business developer and a marketing person, 1 person. At the early stages, like, believe it or not, you can hire 1 person for multiple roles for a startup in early stages. I noticed that myself. 1 person can do more things. Just ask them, basically. So, I hired another engineer. So we're like 3 engineers, including myself. I'm also doing the CEO role. And then I have a business developer, marketing person who's taking care of our social media accounts, also setting up the calls with partners and all this stuff. And I just hired another designer Designer is from Turkey, and he's surprisingly so good. And he's also a web developer too, so he's taking care of our website update and then building it too. So I'm gonna, I'm gonna keep working with him. So I want to create this like knit team,
Mm-hmm.
that closely knit team, small. I believe, and actually, OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman said the same thing recently. I really believe that if you create this like high performing team of a small size team, probably like 4 engineers, they achieve a lot more than a bigger team with a lot more engineers.
I mean, I could totally get that because, I mean, how many times you hear that analogy? Too many cooks in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
And I've experienced that before because, sometimes you can come across those people that have the big egos and you have too many of those in the kitchen. Nothing ever gets done. Yeah. And there's a lot of miscommunication that can happen too. And I think that is where that strategy of building something and creating a team really makes a lot of sense. Because everybody's an A player, and you only need a few A players to get the job done. But if you have some dead weight and you just have a big team with, some people that are great, some people that are just there for the paycheck, you're not going to reach that goal as quickly as you would unless you had people that were all in and working together and as a tight unit.
Yeah, and the engineer that I hired has worked with our CTO before, so that really, they've worked before, so it kind of helps. And to me, that was a no-brainer. I'm like, just name your salary, basically. It was a no-brainer. So like making them work together, and then have another person, maybe like 3 of them, work together, will be very nice. And I tell people like, it's just, do your best, basically. Outperform for what you can achieve, what you think you can achieve. I actually get the best out of people, usually. For some reason, I've always been that way. People don't believe in themselves. I make them better.
And what do you think that your methodology of doing that comes from?
I think it's simple.
Yeah? What is it?
Yeah. I just believe in them more than they believe in themselves.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And do you think that gives them the encouragement, or it's like, ooh, I don't want to let Bulent down?
Probably both. Yeah. Initially, they don't want to let me down, but they can only survive with that motivation for a short period of time. Eventually, it hits them. I can actually do this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, have you watched? It's the whole act as if, right? Act as if there's no way you could fail.
Yeah.
I just watched a movie on Netflix recently. Hitman. Have you watched that yet?
Oh, I haven't watched it yet.
Anyway, in it, he basically, plays these different characters posing as a hitman. And he just becomes these different characters. But in it, he talks about something, and I found it really interesting. And I just kind of geek out on this topic anyway. But if you pretend as, this is the person that you want to be, and you do it long enough, you become that person.
Yeah.
And so same thing when you're training somebody or you're trying to get somebody to perform at their best, you believe
within
that
reasons, obviously.
Yeah, of course. But that makes sense where your subconscious starts molding into that person that you're trying to become.
I think the issue is we think that these people who have achieved are superior, and they're not. They're just regular people. I've seen them. I've never seen I have really high net worth friends. They're regular people. Like they're no different. They just did the right things, and they worked, and they just were lucky.
And they stay consistent with it.
Consistency. I have a friend. He's an entrepreneur. I've never seen anyone like him. He's my mentor. He's like a sports player, like sportsman, like on time and everything. Like just incredible. That doesn't necessarily. I'm not saying that works. It's just he's very like kind of a trainer, like a sports trainer kind of person. But overall, like basically, what I see is like I see potential in someone. I'm not saying this to everyone. I need to see the potential first. I need to see that there's like a potential that it's just that person doesn't see it or hasn't given the chance probably. Like I remember I tutored. This is a long time, 20 years ago. I tutored a girl for Java programming language class, and she says she got F and then twice. This is the third time. She just wanted to get a D and pass. And I said, I talked to her a little bit. I'm like, you're intelligent. I'm like, it's not for me. I said, if you just, your goal is D, you go find someone else. Someone else will get you from F to a D. That's not me. Unless you want to get an A, then I can do something with it. I can help you. She's like, of course I want an A, but I'm just fine with D. I just want to pass the class. I'm like, look, I'm going to be honest. If you just want D, I'll find someone else for you. I just want to, if you need to want to get A, that's the only way for me to help you right now. She's like, sure. She was like, you're talking out your ass. I mean, just, okay, sure. And then, so we started early, like, beginning of semester. So we started, like, I started teaching her with the ways and why things happen. I really found foundational things. I explained to her, like, when we did examples, experiment, like, wrote some code together. And then, like, 3 months later, she had, like, her first midterm. She got 96. And she's here. She's having a conversation with the teacher. And the teacher's saying, I apologize. I took out 4 points because of this and this and that. But you're the number one student. Like, you're the top scorer by far. And she's having a conversation. Not just the score is great. Having a full Java conversation with the teacher. She's like, I felt like it was someone else talking. I felt like you were talking for me.
Wow. So you basically gave her that belief.
Yeah.
And that's who she be.
She got an A+. Yeah. I mean, from the class. Like, I'm not kidding. It just happened.
That's pretty cool, man. That's really cool.
So, but I saw the potential. I saw she's smart. She wasn't given the chance to, like, she failed in another class. She didn't learn the previous class enough to build up on this class and other things. So we went all the way back. The foundation of coding, programming, to build up all that stuff to get there. And then slowly but surely we got there. And then she was a top student and then top score. For F student twice.
Wow.
I made that person an A+ student. So I feel like people can achieve it. So, I mean, I'm an example of that myself. So I'm like, I just see the potential. I just believe in people. Like my business developer, I feel like she's just been in the wrong place. She's like ready to, like, just go like rocket ship, but she's like, someone turns it off, like in the middle, and she just kind of fails. And I'm like, I feel like you have so much potential. I just gotta, like, let you, like, give you enough oxygen, and then give it a spark, and then just
let you go.
Yeah, that's what I see. So, and yeah, people, it gives them motivation. It gives people the courage, but the motivation lasts a short time. Like, doing it for me is a short term. Once they see it, the potential in themselves, like, they really go off with that. They run with that. And that's where the real motivation, like long-term motivation, comes, because they believe in it themselves. Yeah.
Man, well, I tell you what, I'm sure somebody's listening to this right now and is thinking, like, Bulent, I'm in. Like, I want to, with Moved and these projects that you have going on, and as the conversation with Genesis continues to grow, those blocks keep building upon one of another of conversation. Where can people go to continue the conversation in between episodes, keep tabs on what's going on, and just reach out to you as a resource in some capacity?
Yeah, so we're actually building our communication channels. So on Telegram, our group is at Moved Network. And on Twitter, we're at Moved Network as well. So right now, best place to, like, kind of engage with our posts on Moved Network Telegram, Twitter account. That's probably the best way for now. But we're building our, like, website and building our other social media accounts to, like, be able to be able for folks to, like, reach out to us. So, but for now, I think on Twitter would be the best place.
Okay, and as always, we'll make sure we have the links to the handles down below in the show notes, down below this video if you're watching on YouTube or wherever you're watching this content, to stay up to date with the conversation for everything about blockchain, Bulent, and whatever entrepreneurship, whatever the conversation.
We're gonna share a lot.
There we go. We'll see you next time right here on Genesis.
Yeah. Take care.